Hi, welcome back to the Photography Club podcast. I'm your host, Sue. This is a podcast for any photographers who are ready to take their photography to the next level. If you're here, you want to grow your business, you want to grow your confidence, and build a business that supports the life that you love. If you've been following along in this podcast, you know that I'm taking you behind the scenes as I grow and scale my own business. And one recent change that I recently made, I say recently, but it's been like a year now, but that is stepping into in-person sales. And so this is where I can serve my clients so much more than just the photos by providing them with something tangible, artwork that they can have for the rest of their lives, which is why I'm so excited for today's episode because I'm bringing on Krista Rene Robinson. Hello, Krista.
Hi, Sue. I'm so honored to be here.
I'm so excited that you're here too. Krista has been doing in-person sales model in her business for 6 or 7 years now, and she's going to walk us through not only how you can increase income in your business, but how you can serve your clients to the best of your ability and create an experience that is just going to be next level for your clients.
Absolutely. Yes.
Krista, can you actually start by sharing like a win that has happened to you? It can be a recent one or just in your in-person sales journey, something that happened where you're like, wow, I did not know photography could be like this.
Yeah, I'll start with this. I recently did a mini session day for heirloom portraits. And so it's very Southern. So I'm going to explain it for those not in the South that are like, what? And it's like a child portrait with a white vignette, like a very classic, timeless. A lot of our grandparents have them. And just doing a handful of sessions in a day because I sell wall art and that's really what I lean towards and educate my clients on. We did over 9 grand in sales from that single mini session day for heirloom portraits. And I don't pick up my camera as much as I used to since I'm in the education space, but I still love doing it. And I love having wins like that to show photographers like,
Wow.
when you're offering more to your clients, it's not a volume game where you have to always constantly be shooting to make, a sustainable income.
Yeah, that's crazy. Nine grand in one day and through many sessions too, because every photographer that I know and talk to about many sessions, they like struggle so much and then barely even break even after like renting a studio and the props and stuff. So that's incredible.
Yeah, and it's actually the second time our studio has done that. Like we've kind of proven the model to work, and we do it with our full sessions too. We've done 4-figure and multi 4-figure, just regular family sessions or milestone sessions this year, and it's because we offer products and we offer more than just sending a digital gallery.
Wow. I love that. That's so cool. Krista also has a podcast and she has a coaching program and I love her name of it. So she named it The Uncap, right? Is that the
Yeah,
name of your
yeah.
course as well?
It is. Yep, you got it. So what I started doing, Sue, is I was growing as a photographer, and I was building, and I was doing $300 photo sessions, which I feel like is kind of like the norm of where to start. Like 300 sounds good, and I loved it, and my clients were happy. I was loving it, but income wise, I knew I wanted to make more. So I had made the shift into adding in weddings. I thought that's what photographers have to do to like make a sustainable income. And I have some friends that went that route and were incredibly successful. So I was leaning into that. And when I was looking at those numbers too, of like, okay, $300 sessions, maybe, 3 grand weddings, to really look at your numbers, like what does it take to hit 6 figures? What does it look like to get past that? What does it look like to build a sustainable income? Because as photographers, we are probably one of the hardest working industries, right? Physically, mentally, emotionally, like it's a lot.
Mhm.
Things just weren't really adding up. And I think a lot of photographers don't really have a good pulse on their numbers and realize you could actually be making a lot more at a pretty low hourly paying job. And that's not what I want. Like we work too hard for that. And so what I started doing that year that I really like had that was I remember I was paying my taxes and I was like, this is not good. Like I'm my clients are too happy. I'm loving this too much to be okay, like with such little left to show for
Yeah.
it. So that was the year I really leaned into adding in products and really brought ramped portraits back up because I'd shifted mostly to weddings. And it was really scary. It's scary making any changes in your business. I was established making changes. And it's funny, Sue. I know your listeners are at different spots, but like when I coach photographers, I think sometimes it's almost easier for the ones that are really just getting going to start with like a solid model than the ones maybe similar to you and I that like did something for a while and then we're like, okay, we got to regroup a second. Like it's hard. But
Okay, so you're saying you think it's easier to start into in-person sales and offering these products and not add it on once you've kind of gotten established with.
you definitely can add it on, but the students that I've coached that are 10, I coached a student even 20 years into her journey. You know, we've said,
Mhm.
how much better if you had just started with like a
Yeah,
framework that really can work, right? And that can build than having to pivot. Now, it's still worth pivoting, obviously, right? Because like if the numbers aren't adding up and aligning, you're only going to get so far.
yeah,
But I think more mindset work is involved when you've done something
yeah.
a long time a certain way and have to shift it, you know?
Yeah, I completely agree. That's been a hard one for me is changing into thinking like, wow, people can really like make this much from a session. Like, yeah, it's crazy. Can you talk a little bit about in-person sales, how it sounds kind of salesy? Like, I know
Yeah.
a lot of people kind of stay away from it because of that sales
Right, the word
aspect.
sales,
Yeah.
the S word. So,
Yes.
one thing, Sue, that I really remind photographers, you're in sales right now. Right now, you're probably hiding behind a fancy PDF or an Instagram post or a DM, and you're constantly getting told no. It might come in the form of ghosting or you just never hear back. And so you are in sales if you're a service provider, unless you've hired an actual salesperson, which very few, I have never met a photographer who has come in already having a salesperson. So
Yeah,
what this model does is it shifts that into instead of, being pushy, icky selling, it's how do you share the value effectively with your client? Also, the way I do it doesn't have to be in person. Some of my top students are doing this virtually, homeschooling kids. I had a 3 grand sale after I put my kids to bed and popped on Zoom the other night. Like it doesn't even need to be in person. And when you're serving and sharing the value and clients are buying more, it's not being pushy and icky. It's serving. It's out serving your competitors. It's offering so much more to your clients. And I think, Sue, the things that photographers get caught up in is like when you do hear no, when you're working at a closer proximity, like you do feel it more. If you're chatting with someone and they tell you no, you feel it deeper than when you get ghosted, but you still are getting told no. And so it
that's
is
so
hard to
true.
put yourself out there a bit more and hearing those no's. But then overall, when you can make so much more per session, you are going to hear more no's, but you need less yeses for it to make sense. Similar to when I was doing weddings, right? Like I started making as much with 10 weddings as I used to with 25. Why? Because I was charging more. And so I got told no a lot more as I increased rates. And that's okay. I don't want to be shooting every evening and every weekend to build a sustainable business. That's going to lead to burnout.
Yeah, that's so true. And I love that you said that it's just serving because I think having this skill to sell is one of the best skills that you can
Hmm.
have. And
I
that's
agree.
something that I've learned this last year over doing it. And there are ways that you can sell that feels icky, but if you learn to do it the right way, then it's just going to be so seamless and so
Oh,
easy.
yeah. And then even, becoming a mom, I had my second baby this past year. When my
Congratulations.
photographer thank you. When my photographer hasn't taken care of my products or for instance, I had one of my besties who is actually full service as well in Charlotte, but we just did a trade. She photographed my son's newborns, didn't take care of products because she just assumed I would. I didn't. And he just turned 8 months
Oh.
old. I didn't get that newborn album done because, Sue, like, I am my ideal client. I'm a busy mom. Life is crazy. And
Mhm.
I don't look at those photos very often because they're not printed versus the ones that I have printed. I actually hired one of my students to do my daughter's newborns 2.5 years ago, and I did buy an album from her. And like, I look at those way more often. And she wasn't icky or pushy or anything. She served me in that way where that's the purpose of a photograph. Your clients aren't just blowing money, like, let's get photos done. Like, there's a reason they're reaching out and doing this. And you can help them so much more than throwing this digital gallery that, like, you maybe are picking a few favorites from. And then if you don't print those, you really don't see it, to instead helping them see it on their wall every single day. And I'll even tell my students, like, if this is something a bit newer for you, maybe you're not so passionate about it. I get it. I didn't grow up in a home where we printed a lot of our photos. It was a very middle class home. It wasn't something we were looking for things to blow money on. And I understand, like, not I didn't shift to full service because I loved products. I did it because the numbers weren't making sense. But I since have realized that one of the first things you can do is print something personal in your home on the wall. And you'll quickly see how much more often you look at that wall portrait or flip through that album if someone's doing this and never got their wedding album printed. So much more than just these being on the cloud or way back on a camera roll.
That's so true, and I love that you said that because you're really just helping your clients get the most out of their investment because like you said, when it's just the digital photos, like, yes, they're still beautiful and amazing to have, but you just forget about them,
Yeah,
and you're gonna get so much more happiness out of it when you get to see it every day, so really you're also helping them to feel happier.
exactly. I'm in a very competitive area. I created a Facebook group for photographers a few years ago. There's probably over 500 people in it now. I've just like let it sit and they just, people just connect. So it's an incredibly saturated market. And so to try to compete with a $300 photographer, there's so much more competition. Same work, same style, kind of same experience. But to rise above that and offer something so much better, you actually really limit your competition. There's not as many people up at the top that are getting to offer more service to clients because you are making more, right? When you're just getting paid $300, you really can't afford to sit down with your client before and plan out the session on a call and sit down after and finalize everything. Like you wouldn't make enough per hour. But in doing this, I can serve so much more effectively. It's not a fit for everybody, but that's okay.
Yeah, that's so true. I love that. Can you talk a little bit about maybe starting from a place where you're not like, you've never had somebody provide you prints yourself, and so if you're a photographer who kinda wants to get into it, but maybe you don't quite see the value because you're not sure if, like, you would pay yourself for something like that, how might you get into that?
That's a really good question. And see, the biggest thing I tell my students to like tattoo on their forehead, you do not have to be your own ideal client. And I think it can actually become very self focused to think I just have to serve people like me. No, like, of course you don't. Now, I think it's important to slowly really understand why you're doing what you're doing. But my ratio of students who come in just because they are so freaking passionate about products versus ones that are like, I got to grow this sustainably, it's definitely more photographers that are like, I want to grow sustainably. What is the path? Oh, okay, it's products. Great, I can get behind that. So just know if you're in a spot right now and you're like, I really don't print a lot, I've never hired a photographer to walk me through this. I was right where you're at. My husband and I were newly married. We weren't making a lot of money. And so the thought of us investing thousands of dollars in a wall portrait or album like was not even a conversation. But since then, when I did start printing things as I was offering this to clients, I got it. I understood it. Like, yeah, thinking of the sessions my photography friends had taken of my husband and I don't know where those digitals are. I downloaded my 5 favorites and that's kind of what I looked at. And if I didn't print them, I really never looked at them. So if you're in a beginning spot wondering like if this is for you, I mean, the very first thing, Sue, I say is look at your numbers. And instead of just jacking your rates up for the same thing, that's what feels icky. You want to provide more service and more value to your clients. And so that aligns well. The other thing, Sue, is like the way I teach it, you can still have a solid entry point for your clients that's not too aggressive. Like my entry point was 499. I still had an option they could purchase at 499, but my average was 2 grand because they didn't want to stop there and they didn't feel pushed into it. They wanted more. So there's
Mm.
ways you can custom tailor this to your business, but you don't have to be your own ideal client. And you definitely don't have to come into it from a place of like being so freaking excited about products. But you do need to come in at a place of being excited about serving your clients really intentionally.
That's so good, I love that. And
Yeah.
then after starting it, I'm assuming you just fell in love
Oh,
with
yeah.
the products and everything after just doing it and getting in like, every time you get in a print, it's so exciting to unwrap it and see it, and I think over time after doing it, you're just gonna fall in love with it.
Yeah, exactly, and it's a journey. I had charged so little for so long. I remember talking to my coach. I always have a coach because I always wanna learn and get ahead. And I remember when someone handed me a multi-thousand-dollar check, and I told her, I was like, I feel so weird about this." Like and she was like, "There's nothing woo about it. You were undercharging for so long. Of course it's going to feel weird. Of course those numbers are going to feel scary." But ultimately, there's a reason that I realized what I was doing wasn't working, and I had to stick with it. And yeah, it became so exciting knowing like every session I'm doing, they're going to enjoy these further than just digitals. They're going to have these in their home. And the other thing that became really exciting too, from a business perspective, was just seeing those numbers rise. And so it was a win for my clients and a huge win for me. So within a few years of doing this, my income just escalated so much quicker. Um, than I knew possible. And that was also really exciting too to know, hey, I'm doing what I love, but it's also able to support my family.
It's so true, and it's kinda crazy seeing the amount of money that can come in from doing this, and I know some thoughts I had, especially as beginning this, is like, "What right do I have to charge this much?" Like, I felt a little bit icky at first around it. So can you talk about kinda the mindset around, like, "Am I worth charging this much money?" Like,
Yeah.
what is really behind that?
I hear that a lot. And I think the biggest thing is identifying where are you finding that worth? Are you comparing it to your competitors? Are you assuming, are you reaching into your wallets, telling yourself clients would never spend that? Are you saying that because they don't buy more in the online gallery, which makes sense? It's a really low touch point, low service equals low sales. For me, what held me back was I would compare myself so much to my competitors. I'd look at their websites and be like, okay, I'm a little better than her, not as good as him. So I should probably fall in the middle when I don't know their goals. I don't know if they're profitable, right? And I've seen very is what you would see on Instagram as successful and established photographers come to me saying, "I'm not making enough." And so the very first thing that I had to do is I really had to keep my head down and actually just look at my numbers very objectively. Take the emotion out of it and just look at what am I doing and how much is it making? This cannot work long term. $300 sessions will not be profitable. This will not sustain and support my family without burnout, right? And when I
Yeah.
saw that and looked at, well, what would it take? I built around that versus what I thought I should be doing based on like my own limiting beliefs of what my clients should and shouldn't spend. And then my students get really surprised that often the clients that purchase aren't necessarily who you would expect. I serve very like middle class clientele as well, but they see the value in this and you realize, okay, there's people everywhere that value photos and their family. They don't have to be in multi-million dollar homes. They don't have to drive up in the brandest newest car. They can be very normal people and I believe that every client deserves that same level of high service and it can be their decision if they want to spend more. And like I said before, I still had an entry point that could still serve a clientele that wanted to stay with that, but very few did because they were so excited about more and they realized like this is what like I want to invest in.
Yeah, that's so good. I think a lot of that feeling for me came from my clients telling me that as well, because it's like I switched from offering very low, like starting at 300 to like almost tripling my prices, and so I got a ton of people just like really tearing down the idea, and it made me question a lot, like, why am I doing this? Is it worth it? Are people actually gonna pay for it? And then also just, like, being in such a small town, the amount of people I had tell me nobody has that kind of money here, like, nobody's gonna spend that. So can you talk about maybe finding the right clients? I love that you said that entry point, so kind of, like, just starting a little bit lower, that's a really good thing, and I think that would have helped me too if I did that as well. But is there anything else you can kinda get around that feeling from clients thinking you're not worth
Yeah.
it?
I think the very first thing is realizing like you're not going to be the photographer for everybody and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that, with getting told no. You are going to get told no. My top students, my top income producers are the ones who get told no the most. And what
Yeah,
happens is a lot of photographers will change things. They'll go up on prices. They'll hear a no. A past client will say, I don't like this. And they'll change their entire business structure from one person's feedback. When ultimately, when they looked at the numbers, they realized this isn't sustainable. So if you operate your business based on being reactive, you're eventually going to burn out. And that's not going to serve you, your family, or your clients well if you eventually have to close your doors, even, right? And so when you're looking at like, hey, are people in my town going to pay this? They're investing in other things. And recessions, people tighten up on the things that aren't as valuable to them because they want to invest in the things that are still valuable, right? So I have a student in Nebraska. I don't even know the city of it. It's a bunch of cornfields hovering around a 2 grand senior average because she just focuses on serving really well, speaking to that client. She doesn't lean into the nose, and word about her has spread. So even if you're in a small town, people still pay for service. Figure out like who is that person? And again, it doesn't, you're not looking for just someone big and flashy, right? But like you're looking for someone this is really meaningful to, someone that will appreciate the higher level service, someone that really cares very deeply about how their photos are going to end up in their home. And that's your client. So it can look like a variety of people. But one thing that really helped me when I was making this transition and getting leads up with obviously Instagram and SEO is I really looked in my town at where is that clientele? First of all, who is that client? Who do I want to serve? And where are they going in my town? Right? What are the places in your town that maybe are like not necessities that people would be investing in? Think of like higher end boutiques, like a Botox place, a dental spa, places that, high end shoe places that like this isn't a necessity. People are dropping expendable income on this and connect with that business and their clients. And that's something that also really springboarded me into a new clientele I hadn't tapped into.
Okay. And how did you kind of connect with those businesses and their clients? I love that. Love that idea.
So the main thing is if you walk in with your own agenda and you say, I'm Krista and I want to take your photos, whatever, it comes across really icky and weird. They can see right through that. So just like anything in life, building relationships and being personal is going to get you so far. So I would come in and just chat with them. And the cool thing is because they're a business owner, they're organically, if you talk about them, probably going to ask about you. And that's when I would go into like, here's me and here's what I do. And like, what photos can I do for you? And then being full service, I didn't have to, give them everything a blood sample, my firstborn child for free. I could word it in the form of a gift card that covers some and they could buy more if they wanted to. So I would just lean into like, what service could I provide them now? Sometimes it was, hey, my camera's in my car. Can I take some photos of your store? And then we'd connect. And then she referred her associate to me whose family spent $5,000 on getting updated family portraits. Another time I went into a store, the owner was told me, "Hey, I'm expecting." So I was like, "Great. Here's a gift card. I'd love to do your maternity photos." So then she hired me for her newborn session. So then she referred 5 of her gal pals to me, right? Like it just escalates when you lead with service and just connect with people. But for every one of those where that lead aligned, another one, it was a dog place. And I became a customer and I invested with them. I would talk to them. I did her family photos twice. She referred 2 of her neighbors to me. I photographed a corporate event where then she connected me with another business owner and it was kind of the same thing all over again. But for each one of those connections that panned out, 10, probably 10 at least told me no. And so you are going to get told no, but with a model that makes more money and serves better, you don't need or want as many clients. It's okay.
Yeah, that's so good. And leading with service is huge. I can tell you lead with service, Krista, in everything that you do. Like the first question you asked me when we got on this call was, "How can I help you in this podcast? Like, what can I do to support what you're doing?" So Krista leads with service, and me as the receiving end of getting that question, I can just see how good it feels. Like when you ask somebody something like that, "What do you need? Like, how can I help you right now?" That's how you're gonna get an incredible experience with these
Yeah.
clients because being asked that, like, it almost just feels like a breath. It's like, "Wow, okay, like, somebody cares." It's like that personal connection, and I love that so much.
Yeah, and I think we've all gotten that DM as a, even as a wedding photographer, like, "Hey, do you have any leads you can refer me?" And it's like, I don't know you. Like when you just lead with
Yeah.
asking about it's such an ick, right? And people still
Yeah.
do that. And it's like, no, like it's just a law of reciprocity of like you give, others are more inclined to give. Don't expect that. For me, like I am a believer and the Lord's given me so much that I feel like I should, be generous and giving to others and be that light for him, even if it's a no. But people will always remember how you make them feel from the shoot, from everything involved, from their first touch point of view. And when you make someone feel good and comfortable, especially for me, I did a lot of young families feeling comfortable with their kids, right? That's huge. It makes such an impact. You're going to pay more for that, right?
Yeah, yeah, that's so good. Can you actually talk about some of the things that you do with the in-person sales versus the shoot and burn to
Yeah.
provide more of that service? Like, what are some of the differences actually in the whole process of, like, how you're serving them?
Absolutely. So, as far as like the service aspect, not even the pricing, but as far as service goes, the we start with a very high initial touch point. We always say start with a phone call, and it's scary. Your competitors are scared too, and not doing it. but fancy PDFs, even if you're like, well, I'm going to start by sharing all about myself and my dog and that I love, like, no one cares. They're flipping through the price, right? I do it too. I'm busy. But if you can really chat with someone, paint the vision, and really lean into like, what are you going to do with these images? It's going to go so much further. So I always start with that. That's why I've gotten inquiries of like, hey, I think I want a $200 mini session. And then they drop, over $1,000 because like they understood from the beginning, like, this is different and I'm going to serve you so much better. And for me, I'm not in a town. Now there's more service photographers because I've coached them, but like a lot of people weren't familiar with this model. The next thing is I
Sorry,
do a,
can I
oh, go ahead.
interrupt you really quick? Do
Yeah.
you hop on a phone call for mini sessions as well?
I don't for mini sessions, but I still
Okay,
structure it where the door's open for upsell. So that's the
okay.
caveat there. Yeah, yeah.
And you've probably already built, like, your reputation. They know pretty much what they're going into with these mini sessions as well.
You got it. And there's less to really paint the vision for because the mini sessions, they're only on one day. They're back to back. It's one clear venue. So there's a little bit less to flesh out, but I don't include the full gallery with those either. And I always love to have some type of product focused mini sessions. Like, this is the goal.
Mhm. Okay.
We build that touch point before, map out the session, and then after we sit down, again, this can be totally virtual. My one of my top students, Jessie, added $60,000 to the first year she implemented this. And like, she has no studio and is a homeschool mom. And so,
Wow.
you sit down after with the client, go through things and look at their favorites and finalize their order, but, where a lot of the main difference with shoot and burn is I still remember when I had, a friend say like, "Oh, send these clients a PDF after of how they can buy prints." And I was like, "Oh, that's a great idea." And no one bought anything, right? My online gallery sales were really
Mm.
low, maybe a couple grand a year, like nothing crazy for the volume I was shooting. And when you have that initial touch point and talk about products from the beginning, that door is just wide open where like you can go into a session knowing, okay, they want a newborn album. So I want to shoot for that. Okay, they want the big family portrait on the wall. That's my focus, not a cookie cutter session where I'm getting the same thing at each session. Like, it's really mapped out for my families. And living in South Carolina, the real feel gets 90 to the hundreds throughout the summer. Like, they appreciate that where they're like, great, get what we need and move on.
Yeah, yeah, that's so good. I love that. So it's really just taking that step to be more personal and really
Yeah.
just like having that time to ask them these questions. Can you share some questions you do ask to get a little bit deeper into your clients? Because I know that was one thing I struggled with. I would ask clients, like, okay, like, what do you want? Like, tell me about your senior year or something. And I would not get very much information. So, how do you kind of get these clients to open up?
Yeah, and I love how you said getting them to open up because that's the thing is these touch points aren't about me. They're about the client and some open up easier than others. But in order to serve them well, like I do need to know, like, are we doing 3 locations and 6 outfits? Or we just, I have a senior boy coming up. He just wants one simple outfit and location. So I'll ask about their vision for the session. I'll ask what's important to them, right? I'll ask like, what are they most excited about for seniors? Are there any extracurriculars? I had a girl, this was so cute. She is a drummer, so we did some like with her drumsticks and like some a cool kind of vibe that I wouldn't have known had I not asked. Um, and so we map it out specifically for that. And then when we've gotten that vision and transition into products, it really becomes great. Like, what do we plan to do with these images? Now, we do give the digital for every print, so it's a great thing for both. Like, hey, you're going to have these if you need them for LinkedIn or resumes or sorority stuff. But then mom, often the mom is there. Like, we want you to really enjoy this before she moves on to her next step. Are we putting this on the wall? Do we want a senior album of this? Like, how do you want to see and remember these? And then we really shift into that. So I've found instead of asking yes or no questions, right? Like, do you want a piece of wall art? Yes or no? And they say no. And then it's like, where do you go? Keep the questions like very open ended because this is often their first touch point to this. It doesn't matter what's on your website. They might not never have thought about this. They may have never printed something before. Some have, but obviously coming from a home like mine, that wasn't the norm. Like, I would need to be walked through that. And so yeah, it starts at the beginning. You're right.
Yeah, that's so good. So, the purpose of this call that you hop on is to get to know what they want, but also to get to know what kind of products they want as well. So, you
Yeah,
already
yeah.
at that point start asking them about what they want on their walls.
Exactly, and I don't press too hard because often they don't know, but I want them just to be thinking about it, right? And going home and looking at their wall and thinking about how they would enjoy these. And it's really good to put the bug in their ear, like, as soon as you can. instead of at the end of the session after being like, time to buy products. Like, here's your online gallery. And photographers wonder why online gallery sales are really low. And they're DIYing it. My clients aren't wall art and album designers. And also they haven't really thought about it much, right? So you send them the gallery, you're like, no one's buying. And it's like, well, yeah, because it's like, here's your session, buy products. And they're like,
Mhm.
I haven't even thought about this. I don't know how big a 20 by 30 wall portrait is.
Yeah. Can you share a little bit more about your calls that you hop on? Is there any tips you can give to kind of have a successful call with a client? And I know that success doesn't necessarily mean booking them, but just to kind of like guide it in a way that feels good for you and the client.
I mean, I say even if you're doing shoot and burn, having we have what's called a design consultation. We meet before, we talk about their outfits, their vision, we make sure location's good, and then we do ease a little bit more in depth into products and getting specific there. And what I found is so much comes up at that call of like, you could lean into like what are the photos most important to you? And we've had clients cry during this time because there can
Wow.
be so much deep meaning behind a photograph and why they're doing this. And having that touch point before immediately sets you apart. You're going to be able to cover so much ground so much quicker than, well, I send a survey. Yeah, but like not as much is going to come up. Like, can you imagine, Sue, you and I having this conversation back and forth via email? It's just not going to be as effective of us talking together, right?
Yeah.
And really helping take care of that overwhelm for them. And again, it's just leading with service. I think that's huge is if you focus on like, how can I make this time as easy for my clients and hold their hand without I'm not going to depend on fancy PDFs, even though those can be helpful and great, but like I'm really going to take care of that service for them. It that being your focus will take care of a lot of the rest.
Yeah, that's so good. And then so you have that first call and then you have the second, do you call it ordering appointment?
Yep. So we do a reveal session ordering appointment after the
Yeah.
shoot.
Okay. And then is there any tips you can give for that to kind of guide the client into making the right artwork decisions for
Yeah.
them?
So I'd say the very first thing is like it really starts at the beginning. I have sold, pieces of wall art and albums to clients who weren't anticipating coming in and buying it, but it's best if they come in already knowing the wall they're thinking of, what they're wanting. I can have some mock-ups ready. And I'll say, I think the biggest thing I see photographers missing is they often reach into their clients' wallets and assume the sale for them, right? Like they're pulling some bigger numbers. They get worried, so they'll stop the sale, throw a bunch in for free. Versus, I had a coach that was basically like, just keep selling, like until they tell you like they're done. Like keep offering them the different things. Like start big. Don't assume they want something small. And I've had clients come in telling me like their jobs or what they drive. And I'm like, okay, I don't know what spend will be. And I've been completely thrown off because they valued this and wanted this. So again, it's just that leading with service and like putting yourself out there. It's scary to think of getting told no, but like really just getting out of your own way. And it also comes with like painting the picture for them. So you're not selling, a certain type of frame or a certain quality of leather. You're selling a transformation of you're going to have these in your home to see and walk by every day. Like you're selling the why to that and the deeper meaning to that, not necessarily like the type of lab and glass you're using.
I love that you mentioned that because I know I made this mistake at first, at least, is like really focusing on like, oh, it's such great quality. You're going to love the quality. We work with the best print labs. And so I have recently made that shift into presenting them with the why. And it just feels so much better too,
It does.
to get to that deeper meaning of them actually having these photos and loving them.
Exactly.
What is something that you struggled with as you were starting in person sales and how did you overcome it?
I mean, I think the biggest thing is really the mindset of you're going to get told no charging more than you are to $300 sessions, right? When I charged 2 grand for weddings, I heard less no's than when I charged, 6 grand. And I think the biggest thing is I had to just kind of keep going back to my why of understanding what I was doing wasn't working before. So this is going to be a shift. There's going to be a lot of learning involved here. And being uncomfortable does not mean you're doing anything wrong. And that's why a lot of photographers stay stuck is we want our brains are wired to avoid the discomfort. So what I had to do is did have to keep going back to my numbers, and that helped me not fall back into like my old
Mhm.
ways of just like, hey, this wasn't working. I switched for a reason. And the other thing was to, I invest heavily in my education every year because I want to be surrounded by other people learning and growing and actively achieving their next goal. And I want to be in the room with that with someone who's done it ahead of me and can help me fast track it. And so I can 100,000% say that like me investing my own education and growth was the only way that I was able to like have such huge traction and growth so fast instead of trying to DIY things like, and then, I had some really close friends and I actively doing this together that we could help encourage each other to stay motivated to say, hey, that was a really hard client situation. I need to talk through it or to celebrate like that really big win with where like, shoot and burn friends would see like, oh, you had a $5,000 sale and be like, what the actual heck is happening versus someone else in this space like understands what you're doing and is celebrating with you. And that was
Oh, I love that.
huge for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I completely agree. Having a coach is the way that you're going to grow the fastest and avoid mistakes that you would otherwise make. And then a lot of coaching programs, like I'm sure yours is like a group where you do have
Yes.
that support.
Yep.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. So Krista teaches so many photographers, you guys, and I highly recommend you go and check out what she has to offer and her course. Thank you so much, Krista, for everything you've shared. Is there anything that you wanted to talk on that I haven't asked you about?
No, Sue, you are great. I think this is so wonderful that you're doing this. And y'all, I hope that you dig into Sue's podcast and hear what photographers are doing and just hear the different models. And Sue, you have such a big heart for serving. You made that really clear, even coming aboard, that like you truly are here to benefit your listeners. And that's incredible.
Thank you so much, Krista, and thank you for coming on.